This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agin Erev Shabbos Rabbi Isai, Freilichen Shushan Purim, the 15th day of Adar, Sheni. And we have a unique opportunity to learn the Haftorah of Parshas Tzav. So in some of my go-to svarim on the Haftorah, it says that they didn't darshan on Tzav. For example, in the Berachos Chaim of the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai darshan on Shabbos Haggadah, probably the year that he wrote the commentary on the Haftorah, so it was a regular year. So we don't have so much on the Haftorah. It comes from the Navi Yirmiyah, and it talks about Karbanos, and the Sefer Chazon David he brings. In the Haftorah it says, Kiloi dibarti es avoseichem, I didn't speak with your forefathers, v'loi tzivisim, al divrei oila v'zavach, kiyem es hadavar hazeh tzivisi oisam leimar, shimu b'koili. All I told them was as follows, that the tachlis is to listen to God. V'loi chas v'shalom lachdoi u'letztarech lahavi karbanes. The purpose is God doesn't want your karbanos. Don't sin and don't bring the carbon in the first place. Which is, again, this is a similar message to the Parsha, which talks about the karbanos of achatos and an asham. But I want to talk about two psukim toward the end of the Haftorah. Ka'oi amar Hashem al yishalel chacham b'chachmasai v'al yishalel hagibar b'gvurasai al yishalel ashir b'yashrai. So says the Lord. Let the wise man let the wise man not glory himself in his wisdom. Let the mighty man not glory in his might. Let the wealthy man not glory in his wealth. Ki im bezayis yishalel hamishalel haskel v'yado yaisi. In this can he who wants to glorify himself. If he understands and he knows me. Ki ani Hashem oiseh chesed, for I am the Lord who performs kindness. Mishpatot tzedakah ba'aretz, ki v'yelech chafatzti nom Hashem. Okay, so here we have a warning. Don't be arrogant. Don't elevate yourself. You want to take pride? You could take pride in one thing, knowing me. Don't take pride that you're smart. Don't take pride that you're strong. Don't take pride that you have money. You want to take pride in something? Take pride that you know me. But it sounds like there is something in this world you could be arrogant about. Knowing God. If you know God, you're allowed to say, look, you know who you're talking to. I'm someone who knows God. So that's what I want to talk about this pasuk. And hopefully we'll get more clarity in it than we were before, but no guarantees, okay? Let's start with the Ramban in Parshas Shoftim. The pasuk says, Levilti rum levavai me'echav, it's talking about the king. The king has to be very careful that he doesn't become arrogant, more arrogant than his brothers. Levilti sur min mitzvah, and he doesn't turn away from the commandments, yamin usmal, right and left. Laman yarech yamim al mamlachtoi, in order to live long on his kingdom, hu uvanov, him and his children, b'karav Yisrael. Basically, the king should not be a Baal Gaiva, and he'll live longer that way. So Ramban says, it's an interesting thing. According to most Rishonim, Gaiva is not one of the 613 mitzvahs. I mean, not being a Baal Gaiva. Some people think Gaiva is one of the 600. No, but it's not one of the 613. Except for the Smag. The Smag actually includes Gaiva as one of the 613, and he learns it from the pasuk, Hishamar lecha pen tishkach es Hashem. Be careful not to forget God. How do you forget God? When you're arrogant, you forget God. In fact, he writes that as he was composing his list of 613, he had a dream and they told him from heaven, you forgot to list this one. But most Rishonim do not list Gaiva as one of the 613 mitzvahs. But the Ramban says in this pasuk is a remez to the sin of Gaiva. Nirmaz bekan b'Torah. The Torah alludes here to Isser HaGaiva. Ki hakosav yimna hamelech megeos v'reimamas halev. The pasuk is preventing the king from being arrogant and from being haughty. And if the king can't be haughty, then certainly a regular citizen. Sheinim ruim lekach. Ki beroilis roimim l'sgadel yazirenu lios levavoi shafal k'chol echav. That even though perhaps for the king it's fitting for him to be elevated, it's warning him that his heart should be humble like everyone else who are lower than him. Ki hagaiva mido maguna. Arrogance is very disgusting. V'nemeses, and it's putrid. Eitzel alekim. Afilu b'melech, even to a king. So now the question is, what's wrong with Gaiva? What's wrong? I'm better than you. I mean, what do you... That's the fact. What's wrong? Why can't a person think they're better than anyone else? What's wrong? It might be foolish, but why is it bad? Why is it bad to be about Gaiva? Who are you hurting?
Isn't it a representation of the Yetzirah overcoming the normal feelings? And the Yetzirah is telling you to be about Gaiva because it's going to create problems and you're going to wind up having Yisurim because of those problems.
So Gaiva could lead to all kinds of interpersonal conflicts. What's inherently wrong with it? So the Ramban says an interesting thing. You know what's wrong with Gaiva? It's infringing on Hashem. Because Gedula and Gevura belong to God. Gedula and Rayu, Ki Lashem HaGedula. Gedula belongs to Hashem. V'haroimimus, and elevation. V'loi levadei atila. Praise belongs to Him. Praise doesn't belong to human being. Praise belongs to Ribono Shel Olam. All praise belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ubayis halal. So in other words, the Ramban is saying, you know what's wrong with Gaiva? It doesn't belong to you. You're taking God's cloak. God is Hashem Malach Geos Lavesh. Majesty, grandeur, belong to the Ribono Shel Olam Himself. It doesn't belong to man. Praise belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All Shivach belongs to Hashem. Ubayis halal ha'adam. And in God a person should be uplifted. Ki inyan ha'mavura yidei ha'naviyim toyavas Hashem kol gvalev. God, Gaiva is an abomination to Hashem. And it says, Ki im bezois yishalel ha'mishalel. You want to be elevated? You want to be praised? Be praised in Haskel v'yadaya oisi, that you know me. Now from the Ramban it's mashma that what's wrong with Gaiva? That it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to Hashem. Majesty belongs to God. But that implies, but what if I want to be about Gaiva because I know God? So it doesn't take away from God. If I think I'm better than you because I know God more, that doesn't take away from Hashem. Just the opposite. I feel that I'm better because I have more of a knowledge of Hashem, and all greatness belongs to God. So the more I know of God, the greater I am. But it doesn't take away from God. If anything, it adds to God's greatness. Meaning the Ramban is learning the only problem with Gaiva is it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to a mortal. It belongs to the divine. But if my pride is I know the divine, it's not taking away from Hashem.
It's that you know the divine better than I do.
Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It might be silly, but the Ramban learns the problem with Gaiva is it's taking away from Hashem. That implies, and the Ramban says, therefore, if you want to be prideful that you know Hashem, you know Torah, then maybe that's okay. And he says that's the pasuk. Ki im bezois yishalal hamishalal haskel v'yadaya oisi. The Chaye Adam, you know who the Chaye Adam was? Rabbi Avram Danzig. So he wrote one of the famous works of halacha, Chaye Adam. But he also wrote a sefer on Hilchos Shabbos called Zuchroth Maisha. And I remember when I was in, how old was I? 18 years old. I heard this from Rabbi Jacobson, our Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva Tveres Yisrael. There is a pshat here from Rabbi Avram Danzig in the Hakdama to the Zuchroth Maisha. And he has a different take on the pasuk, Ki im bezois yishalal hamishalal haskel v'yadaya oisi. The Zuchroth Maisha says, Achar shahidiacha ha'avain hagadol shenisel b'hem hagaiva. After the Torah is telling us the terrible sin that is hanging on Gaiva, tzarech ani lo hidiacha v'lachkar achra. We need to investigate kol hapratim, all the details of Gaiva, b'chtei leido yinotzma, to be able to be spared from it. Hinei ha'gaiva mishava b'adam achas shrois asma iza ma'ala she'inu b'shar b'nei adam. What causes a person to be about Gaiva? That he has qualities that nobody else has. V'lachein yoram levavai. Therefore his heart is uplifted. V'choshkin kishakibetz v'harba milas. All the more so if he collects and gathers many attributes. Sha'az yachshav l'chol adam kolai. The more good qualities a person has, the more he thinks of others as nothing. Says Chaydim, I met a big God-fearing person, and he said, everybody else is nothing. Everybody else is nothing compared to me. This guy was blinded. He was a big Yarei Shamayim, but he thought nobody came to his toenails. And there are 4 types of tsaras of Gaiva. It's like a way of saying there are 4 types of Gaiva. 4 things in this world that make a person Baal Gaiva. The worst kind of Gaiva is a rich person. Because what do they have? Okay, hey, rich person, we're going to take you into a room now. We're going to take off your clothing, and we're going to look at you. Who are you? Oh, but in 10 blocks down, I have in a building in my safe deposit. I don't care what you have in a building. You shaita, you standing right here. What are you? Who are you? Me? I'm a rich guy. No. Forget what you have in that building. That's not that we took away your key from. That's outside, it's external. That's the first, that's the worst type of guy, because it's not even inherent to the person's makeup. Second type is a person, begufai, milos that a person's born with, strength, looks, talents, that are part of a person's guf. So at least they're connected to a person. That's a little bit better, but bad. Then there's another one, DNA, yichos. But it's worse because it's only doima. Because the guy didn't do anything. He was just born that way. It happens to be his father was a Gadol Hadar, but this guy's nothing. And at least if the guy is rich, he'll give us some tzedakah and some people will benefit from. Or at least if the guy has a good voice, people will listen to. But the fact that this guy's father is a Gadol Hadar, but this guy is nothing and he's not contributing to society, so his benefit is worthless. And then there's a 4th thing a person could be about Gaiva. Hu ha-muvchar shebekulam, sheba la'adam b'sichla v'shtadlusai. That which comes with a person's intellect and efforts, chachma. And not stam chachma. Chachma and haskel, whether it's in Torah, or whether it's in medicine, or whether it's in mathematics, or whether it's in refuah, or whether it's in muzika. You know what muzika is? Music. Unbelievable. V'cho shara chachmais. And this is incorporated in the pasuk in Yirmiyah. Al yishalel chacham chachmasai. That includes all chachma, whether Torah, other chachma. V'al yishalel hagibar v'gvurasai. That includes all physical qualities that a person's born with. V'al yisalel ashir bi'ashrai. That's the lowest because it's external. And there it's saying about all of them, al yishalel adam chalelu. So the question is, so what does it mean? Rak bizayis yishalel am yishalel. Only glory in this. Haskel v'yadaya oisi. Ratzaloymer. You know when you could glory? If you utilize these benefits to know God, that if you're born with intellect, yasek b'Torah, because that's the true chachma. All the other chachmas are just to service Torah. Someone who's born with gevura or other milos should use them la'avodas Hashem, to be a gibar. Someone who has a good voice should use it to daven to Hashem. Someone who is wealthy should give tzedakah. Now here he says something interesting. It's hard to know exactly. He says, "V'nei loy amar akasav v'zoysi halal hamahalal." It doesn't say in this should a prideful person be gloried. Ela shamar yis halal hamasalal. That means as follows: Kavanasai shebevadei ha'adam atzma yafal pishe'inoi oisik b'chol elo adam rak lahaskal v'yodei oisi v'chol ma'asalav l'sizbar mikamang lo yahalal es atzmai b'zeh. So the Chayadim has a very interesting pshat here. Sounds a little bit different than the Ramban. The Ramban seems to say if you utilize your chachma, your gvura, your ashuras for avodas Hashem, then at least in that you could feel prideful. Ela b'zois yishalal mishalel haskav yedei oisi. No, says the Chai Adam. B'zois yishalel. You can't praise yourself. You shouldn't be prideful. Because then you're going to still be about Gaiva. Like the pasuk says, don't let someone else, don't praise yourself. Because even if a person utilizes all of his mouth avodas Hashem, he should lower himself and consider himself as if he's not. Who's greater than David HaMelech, who is a wise man, a gibar, an asher? And David said, Hashem lo yigava libi v'lo yiramu einai. But rather, Yishalel HaMishalel. You want to know who's deserving of praise from others. Somebody who utilizes his abilities for Avodas Hashem. But it doesn't mean, like the Ramban perhaps is saying, that it's a person is allowed to be prideful if he's Haskav Yodea, because it doesn't say Ela b'zos Yehalel, but Yishalel, with this he can be praised by others. Okay, Rabbi Yisai, that thought from the Haftorah. I wish everyone a good Shabbos, a Freilich and Shushan Purim, and start cleaning for Pesach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.